If you are enjoying this podcast and other podcasts on the Dragon Wagon Radio Network, be sure to check out the Dragon Wagon Shop. Awesome t-shirts and mugs from your favorite shows so you can tout your podcast pride, all while supporting your favorite indie podcast network. And make sure to check it often for new items and limited time designs. So shop now at dragonwagonshop.com and get your dragon swag on.
Let's talk about it.
Yes, let's talk about it indeed. Welcome back to another episode of Elaborate. I am your host, Jake Lloyd, and I am really happy to be back. And I am especially happy to be sitting with my guest this week, who is a comedian who was very influential to me in my youth. She also is a host of fantastic podcasts like the Jackie and Laurie Show, as well as a personal favorite, the Dork Forest. The one and only Jackie Kashian is on the show today. Hi, Jackie.
Hi, Jake. How's it going?
It's going great.
All
Thank
right.
you so much for trekking out here.
Sure.
On this, what was a rainy morning.
I think we're done.
You think we're done?
I was told there was to be no rain after noon.
Really?
Very Camelot of them to call it.
Yeah.
But do whatever you want.
Now, you're a Midwesterner, correct?
I am. Wisconsin, Minnesota.
Right.
Minnesota comic from Wisconsin.
Right. So, do you have to enjoy the rain when it comes?
Yeah, I do. And then
That's so
5 days
infrequent.
later, you're
Oh.
like, oh, I'm bored
Is
too.
it's the same
Yeah.
with snow? Like,
It's the same. Yeah.
when
it turns out.
As a New Yorker, I feel like whenever I go someplace that has the weather that I say I miss,
Right.
a few days into it, I'm like, oh.
Right. It was great.
Right,
Anyway,
it was great. But
let's go back to sunny California.
right. Where it's 72 degrees all the time. Mm-hmm. But it is kind of like living in the Twilight Zone. I will say that. I have no concept of time anymore. I feel like before living in LA or previously in Florida,
Right.
where it wasn't the same all the time, you could place people's birthdays or events or weddings based
Right.
on the weather.
So Florida isn't like this?
Florida is like this in the sense that it's just hot and sunny all the time.
Right.
But so that means like when like a niece is born and it's like, oh, when's her birthday? And I think, oh, what was the weather like outside?
Right.
Oh, it was hot.
Hot and sunny.
Hot and sunny. What
Yeah.
month was that? Yeah.
Right, so it's got to be just like here.
Right.
Yeah,
So-
I've lived in Los Angeles for 1,000 years now. 21
Really?
years.
Wow.
That's a long time. It's the longest
That's a
I've
long
ever
time.
lived anywhere.
Yeah.
And
you're an LA person now. I feel
right.
like,
Well,
once you tip the
at
scale.
what point do I say I'm from LA? I don't know.
I struggle with that
people
too.
say, "Where are you from?" And I'm like, Wisconsin. I'm a Minneapolis comic.
Yeah.
And even
and then you have to say, but I live in. You have three
but I
places.
live in Los Angeles and have for most of my life.
Right. Yeah. It's weird now. I'm at that tipping stage too, where I have lived like out of New York for nearly as long as I was raised in New York. Like it's
Right.
starting to get there. It's
Yeah.
encroaching, and it definitely feels weird because I feel like I'm still like, oh no, I still just left. But it's
Right, it does
yeah.
feel, but it feels like you just left because there are no seasons.
That's why. Exactly.
That's
like
why.
you said. I've
You're
noticed
just like,
time
I've
keeps tripping. Time
certainly
keeps just
does
rolling along.
not feel like 21 years.
Not at all. So yeah, Jack, it's weird because LA is like this. Today is not the first day that we've met. We most definitely did a show or two together.
Sure.
When I first moved out here, and it's that sort of thing where
when did you move out here?
I first moved out here 10 years ago now.
Okay.
And it was likely maybe at the Improv Lab potentially, or maybe
Right,
Ice
10
House.
years ago would
Maybe.
have been more like a Nerd Melt
Potentially.
or like Virgil or
maybe
something like that.
It's that sort of thing where
Yeah.
it's an amalgamous bubble. But I never really got to know you. It was one of those things where it's like just in crossing on the same
Oh, yeah.
show. I'm at the end, or I'm at the beginning or at the end, or
right.
vice versa.
And 10 years ago, did you have that beard?
No, definitely not.
No beard.
No, because
10 years ago was the bearded youth movement.
was it really?
And it was pretty much, what was it? It was 2011. Wait, yeah, it would have been 2011. It would have
2009, 10 years ago.
I
But
would
when
have
it-
say right around 2009 because it was right when everybody who was around 14 or 15
Uh-huh.
at 9/11 was about 21 or 22 and
Okay.
could grow beards. It was a bunch of dudes kind of going, "Was this what you're afraid of? Fuck you." That's one of my
shit.
theories.
I'm not even familiar. That's
one theory of why a lot of dudes grew beards around 2009, 2011.
I like that.
The second theory is or 2000, I think more like 2005 or 6.
Right, early.
It was because it was pretty much backlash. It was like we were all shocked after 9/11.
Right.
And then about 4 years later, sarcasm was reinvented.
Right, of course.
And then guys were like 18. And,
Sure.
And 18-year-old guys were like, you're wrong to be afraid of some dude with a beard. You can watch me grow one. I grew up in Westchester, right?
Right. Oh, okay. I'm a Long Islander myself.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah. I can't put a horse in that race as far as that being a reason, but God, I hope it is, because it would really, that's way better than just like, oh, hipsters started growing beards.
Right. My other theory was the lack of pubic hair. Everybody's shaving their pubic hair, and adult men going, that's creepy. I'm bringing some hair down there.
Okay,
that was
fair.
That was my other theory. Those are both very beard positive theories.
They are very, it's nice to meet someone who is so beard positive, because I feel like the beards are getting a lot of repression these days.
I don't particularly like beards,
no.
but I have a theory that it's your face,
right?
So I don't care.
This is very new to me.
Is it?
Oh, I
last couple of years.
I lived my entire life. I was weird because I still can't grow facial hair as appeared by my beard. You can see I can't grow facial hair. But I always had this really dense little soul patch.
Yeah.
And when I was when I was a kid in the 90s, it was like, all right, soul patches were not the worst thing. They were in style. I mean, they are the worst thing, period. But at the time, as a child, I was,
You're like, we all go through the Axe body spray.
Oh,
you got to do what you got to do.
For whatever reason, though, I just always hung on to it because I could shave everything else and I could get a few days out of it. But for whatever reason, that stupid little soul patch would just be
instantaneously
dense.
come back.
So for years, I just that's what I had, and I would shave everything. For a while, I was doing the Amish with the no mustache.
Oh yeah,
because I was just like, mustache don't look good for me. And I did this sketch show called The Board, and I just was like, oh, I want to do a couple characters with stupid mustache. So I grew a mustache out, and I was just sort of like, oh my God, it's so much better to have a mustache than to shave my lip every day. And then honestly, it has nothing to do with style. It was born simply from laziness.
Right.
It
right.
all
That's
comes
what I hear.
down to it's so nice waking up and just not doing anything.
Well, now, are you doing any sort of combing or grooming of the beard?
Every single time, my girlfriend Alexandra can attest to this. Every time we are at a CVS or a Walgreens, I stare at the beard section for a good 20 minutes and go,
thinking about it?
I don't know what any of this means or does. It's daunting. And there's oils and there's shampoos and conditioners and then there's drops, but then there's creams, and I'm completely lost. And I feel like I need to do something because it is quite unruly and I have very dense, coarse hair. But I've yet to take that deep.
Is it a pokey beard? Is it pokey? Or is it soft?
It's a little. I think
maybe after the show, if allowed,
sure,
I might briefly just touch your beard.
Yeah, I would actually. I don't know, and I would like that designation. I'd like you to tell me what it is.
Right. Well, because my husband has a very pokey growth. Facial hair, and so when I met him, he had a wizard beard.
Oh wow!
Which he didn't call a wizard beard. I'm alone in calling it a wizard beard. It was
not anymore.
Sort
you're
of
not.
like a goatee kind of situation, but a pointy beard coming out the end of it.
Okay,
like a pointy sort of spinny bit.
I feel like I mean, I don't know if this reference will be lost on you, but I feel like a Scott Ian.
That is lost on me.
Okay,
and, but
that's fine.
I'm sure somebody listening is like, I see what he means.
Some weird metalhead. Yeah. He said.
And but it's so funny because I was telling my friend Danielle Koenig when we met, because he also had an iguana.
Okay.
Who the iguana just passed away. 23 years he had that iguana.
Jeez.
Yeah, that's a long time to have an iguana.
I think it had to get pretty big, didn't it?
Well, and they get full size within 3 or 4 years. Wow. So for 19 years, he had a 3.5 foot long iguana, and
a wizard beard.
And a wizard beard. The wizard beard. Danielle was like, "Oh, both of those are deal breakers. I don't understand how you're still dating that guy." And I was like, "Well, it's his face." And then the first time we kissed, he was like, "Was the beard too scratchy?" And I said, "It was it was scratchy, but it's your face." Next time, no beard, and has not had for a little while. He was like for November, he would grow the mustache.
Right? Yeah.
And
the
he
mustache.
Looks like a Denver cop. He looks.
See, I can't. I have this. I'm like Joe Dirt. Like my hair just grows all white trashy. Like it's just inherently. And I have this very Western mustache, and there's nothing I can do to avoid the Western mustache.
If you just had the mustache.
If I just had a mustache, I'm going to look like the world's weakest cowboy. Like, I'm going to look like the world's most out of shape, like the cowboy who can't ride a horse and has never lassoed a bull.
You're Cookie.
You know what? That would probably be the name for sure. Speaking of wizard beards.
Yes.
I was highly influenced by your Comedy Central Presents when I was a starting comic.
Yes,
And
I have met you before.
Sure,
There's a dude about your age who was like, you could do jokes about video games?
You know what? And that was a lot of it, because it was, at this point, I'm in my late teens, and I'm, the only club I've got is Governors on Long Island.
Oh, God.
Okay, that's the only place.
I've played it once.
Yeah.
And it's fine.
Yeah.
And every time I got off stage, the owner of Governors would be like, you keep thinking they're smart. They're not smart. And I was like,
I should be taking offense to this, but
he's like, these people think Walt Whitman is the name of the mall. Don't worry about it. And I was like,
oh God, what a beautiful sentence that was. You're so right. I had no idea he was a person for a very long time. So that was the extent of my, the first stand-ups. Robert Kelly, who's a great comic who I love.
Right, they're good
Robert
comics.
Kelly, that was the first stand-up comedy comedian I ever saw live.
They're doing the job.
And then, admittedly, there's Ted Alexandro was an early person who I saw very early on. Like,
he's great.
Guys are great, but like, not that I necessarily groupie with alternative comedy, but that's sort of like, that wasn't popular yet.
Right.
And you were one of the first people I saw on television talking about role-playing games and about Dungeons and Dragons. And it was that sort of like, you can, you
can talk about what you like on stage.
I equate it to, I think, the same type of influence that somebody like a Kevin Smith gave as a filmmaker. Like, you can make, like, you can have characters that talk like your friends about the things that your friends talk about.
Men my age had the same, and this is different but the same, as they had the same influence of Bill Hicks.
Right.
Where they were like, you could talk about porn.
Right.
And because Bill Hicks was the first guy who said, I watch porn.
Right.
And the audience froze up on him, and he was like, I'm not alone.
Right.
And then did jokes about porn.
Right.
And he had other other stuff that was not plenty of stuff that wasn't about porn. But
I do love the comparison that like video games and role playing games are just nerd porn for
they
us.
Are
like
nerd. Genuinely,
that's the association there. Like, I can talk about my porn, which is
my porn,
being
which
a nerd.
happens to be Final Fantasy Legend.
Right. But honestly, and I feel like you have to hear that more than
Yeah. No, I hear it.
And
it's incredibly flattering, because it was the other demographic of people who like me are again dudes who love sales stuff, because I had all that sales material.
Right.
And then as I've been writing the new albums and stuff, like Bread, It's Never Gonna Be Bread, has the Final Fantasy Legend joke on it.
Right.
And it's from 2000. I think that album is from 2005.
Right.
And it has the Final Fantasy stuff. And then Horcrux is the album after that, is like, this will make an excellent Horcrux.
Right.
And it has some other different nerd stuff and some LARPing stuff and some stuff about that. But it also has more, it's like when more women started liking my stand-up. And I've always, I've just been grinding it out for the last 30 years.
Sure.
Trying to make the dudes laugh. Because if you can make the dudes laugh on a road gig, the booker will book you again.
Right.
And if you make the women laugh, he'll book you on Valentine's Day. And thank you,
God.
but no. And I need to work the other 50 weeks a year.
Right. Wow. That's
so it's harsh, but it's real. And so that's but in the last 10 years, you can make the women laugh and get rebooked.
Yeah, I mean, so
it's great.
The paradigm has definitely shifted. I feel like you were a unicorn 20 years ago.
Right.
And now, I mean, at least obviously I'm talking as a person who lives in Burbank, California, and is in the entertainment industry.
Right.
So I say that the pop culture guru woman is everywhere.
Right.
Maybe that's not the case in the middle of America, but
it's not the case everywhere, but it is more prevalent.
Right.
There are more women comics just even doing it.
Right.
And we're kind of in a golden age.
Right.
Don't think I don't feel him breathing down my fucking neck, because
all of a sudden you get real sexist as you get older. You're like, you know what? There's too many female comics.
Wait a minute.
Yeah.
And because 25 years ago, they would only book one woman a show,
right.
And maybe that's still happening, but I've got to believe that it's okay anyway because we gotta move. I mean, funny's gotta be funny eventually, right?
Yeah.
So you just gotta let it go and
Sure.
be psyched that I swear to God, right now there's 10 like blow you off your seat.
Right.
Hilarious, sort of like 10 years ago, the bearded youth movement. When I talk about that, there are a half a dozen hilarious dudes with beards that changed the way Comedy Central and a lot of stand-up looked, right?
Yes, absolutely.
With Kanane and
well, first off,
Zack.
Blazers went away. You know what I mean?
Right.
There was no more Blazers, and there was a voice. There was like a very distinct, like Kyle Kinane is the perfect example. He literally became the quote, the voice of Comedy Central.
And Zack Galifianakis was sort of was like the first guy.
Right, yeah.
And then he was patient zero of the beard.
He was for sure patient zero.
And so like there's
not
like,
just of the beard.
right,
yeah.
of many. And then so I mean there's like, you look at Carmen Morales and Brandy Posey and Emily Heller and Kate Berlant and all of these amazing women. And then there's Nikki Glaser and Amy Schumer.
Sure, yeah.
And who are at a even higher level.
Yeah.
And so it's like a fucking smorgasbord of them. We've been in this golden age of stand-up for the last 15, 16 years. And it was all these dudes, and now it's all these women. And so I don't know what's left. Children?
Yeah, we're gonna. I mean, honestly, wasn't there one not that long ago on some television show that people were like, "Oh, she's 9 years old, and she's doing stand-up." I'm like, she's got 3 jokes.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that is the problem is that when somebody's dad's writing jokes for their kid, you're like, just do stand-up.
Right?
Dude.
Yeah,
leave them alone.
Yeah,
leave them alone.
Yeah.
Put them in gymnastics. They're super bendy at that age.
At least you are giving them tools to survive school. So you that's fair. But
and the internet.
Right. Yeah. Oh,
Liz Winstead was telling me that she kind of wants to do a seminar for like tech women or women in other industries who aren't used to hecklers and trolls.
Right.
Because women comics, Liz Winstead's
it's part of the job.
She was the co-creator of The Daily Show. I don't know if you remember.
Right.
So she created The Daily Show. She's been getting shit for 30 years.
Right.
Nobody gives me shit. I'm the golden retriever of stand-up comedy.
Right.
Everybody likes me.
Sure.
So I don't really,
well put.
I don't have too many, I rarely, if ever, get any trolls.
Right. But let's talk, because it's sort of a fascinating world to me. Is clearly based on the material that you're known for. Like, you were a fucking nerd. And now knowing you're from the Midwest, you said Wisconsin specifically?
Yep.
Where in Wisconsin?
Outside of Milwaukee, there's a little factory town in between Milwaukee and Racine.
Oh, nice.
Called South Milwaukee.
Gotcha.
And it's its own town.
My best friend's from Eau Claire, Wisconsin. He's
which is
actor.
west side.
Right.
Just an hour and a half out of Minneapolis.
Gotcha. Yeah. I've been to Eau Claire a couple times. Good God, is that a beautiful place? Good God, do they have one block of stuff?
Yes, it is
it's growing.
Yes, it's a very small, but it's a good college town.
Oh, yeah, a total college
and very
town.
pretty. It's right on the Mississippi.
Yeah,
we had La Crosse. I get it mixed up.
No, yeah, it's on a different river that mixes with that.
With the Mississippi.
Yeah,
okay.
I forget what it's called. Anyways, being from there, being a nerdy woman or a nerdy young girl, really, like, I can't. Did you like? I always hear the stories. All of my friends who are even my age that are into role-playing games or just internet culture, they're always like, oh yeah, I started when I was 9. It was me and 5 old dudes.
Right.
And like,
and they still know those guys.
Right, yeah.
It was not that for me.
No, it wasn't that?
So the kind of dork that I was. So I in that special, and my podcast is called The Dork Forest.
The Dork Forest, of course, I love it.
And it's based on that joke from that special and from like the 2000.
Right, yeah.
And growing up, I was very much a solo kind of. I wasn't a classical nerd, right?
Okay.
I love Star Trek, and I love Star Wars, but I mostly read like Civil War historical fiction.
Wow.
So
that's a special kind of nerd.
That's a special kind of nerd. And I was also a very girl nerd in the way that I read a lot of dog and horse books, right? So I was that kid, right?
Oh my God.
Right?
Dog and horse books, like just books like about like
anthropomorphizing.
Not fiction.
No,
fiction.
Oh, fiction.
About talking dogs and horses.
Well, so they weren't talking. They were like a boy and his dog.
Right, I get it.
There was a guy named Jim Kjelgaard who, and so he's like, I don't know. He's from Norway or some place where
Swedish
the J
author,
is super important in a
yeah.
name. And he wrote these books about dogs. This guy, his name was Colonel S.P. Meek.
Okay.
I mean, I remember their names.
Yeah, hung on to it. It must be important.
And then the historical fiction dude was a guy named Joseph Altshuler, who wrote these books in the early 20th century that were literally called boys' books. And they were about the Civil War, the French and Indian War, World War I, and but the Civil War one was amazing. It was 8 books. It was about cousins who fought on different sides of the
Wow.
I mean, just literally,
Yeah.
I was buried.
Wow.
So, and then I went to college, and so I go to college. I live in Minneapolis for a summer, and I
Okay.
hang out with my brother, who is, I have 4 brothers.
Oh,
This is
wow.
my second oldest brother, so he's 8 years older than I am.
Where are you in the?
I'm the youngest. Yeah.
So my closest relative is my brother, who's 7 years older than me.
Right.
Yeah.
So you barely know the guy.
Yeah, it
He's
couldn't
a
be
good
more
sport.
different. Yeah.
Yeah. And so Phil is like, he's like, I live with him for a summer. I work at this Chinese restaurant. I live in Minneapolis. I do a little bit of stand up.
Right.
And I live with him and his wife. And he starts, like, I read The Hobbit.
Okay.
I read The Lord of the Rings.
Sure.
I read Anne McCaffrey's Dragon Riders of Pern. I become insane.
Yeah.
Like, it's fantasy.
the snap.
It's like a light
trigger
switch.
switches.
Yeah. It's sort of like when I first time I did stand up. The first time it was like heroin.
Right, of course.
I literally got a 1.8 that semester. So it was. So when he introduced, I go back to college. I take one of the very first classes they ever have on Lord of the Rings at the University of Wisconsin-Madison. It was a class. It was Tolkien, C.S. Lewis, and a guy named Charles Williams, one of the other Inklings, right? And so we read their books. We don't read The Hobbit, but we read a bunch of other books. We read The Lord of the Rings, The Silmarillion, and then we read C.S. Lewis's, not the Narnia series, the science fiction series.
You are right.
Anyway, so that dips me hardcore into the world of science fiction. I read Heinlein, I read Gibson, I go on all sort of the boy... this rabbit hole of Asimov and Foundation series. And I'm doing stand up.
Right.
So those are the things I start talking about.
Right. It seems to me like you either had no friends.
I had no
friends.
friends.
Because I can't imagine that you can dive into that stuff, or it was those things that led to your friends.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And then when I get married, I do online dating in like 2000.
Right.
And in 2003, took 3 years because I am not good with people.
You don't gotta tell me. My girlfriend, we met online and I moved her in after like 7 days of meeting. I was like, I'm sick of doing this for 5 years. Like,
you seem great.
Yeah, that's good. Let's speed this process up.
You seem amazing.
Sure.
Please don't leave me. But he is a game designer. He makes video games for a living.
That's fantastic.
Right. He is also and he has 40 close friends that he went to UCLA with. When we met, he was like, I'm never moving from Los Angeles because I have to have someone to game with.
Right.
Now, so I've been playing in a D&D game. He introduced me to D&D, Champions, any number, like White Wolf.
So you weren't playing like RPGs and stuff like that before you met him?
Nope.
Interesting.
Or board games, because I came from a big family.
Right.
And when he introduced me to board games, I was like, I actually don't like board games very much. And
really?
He said,
you're blowing my mind right now.
Right.
All my preconceived notions of you are all being challenged.
Exactly. He said, it's because you grew up with sibling rules. And if you have siblings, they're like, oh, you forgot to do a thing. You don't get to $200.
Especially if you're the youngest.
Completely.
Yeah.
Completely. And
the concept of like, oh, let the baby win, like that didn't exist in our home.
That didn't even exist. Yeah. I don't know where that exists.
Yeah, no.
And it didn't, and it wasn't, and my family's enormously competitive anyway.
Okay.
So Andy was like, my friends, we've weeded all of those people out. Right now, I play board games with 40 people who want to win, but also want to have a good time.
Right. Wow.
So if they see something that you should have done, they'll be like, well, don't you want to do that? And then now I'm a 17th or 18th level rogue Kalishtar shadow dancer archer.
Wow.
I'm a fucking god.
And you've been playing that same character in that same campaign
for 13 years.
Wow.
And I've been playing with these 3 guys that have been his friends forever.
Oh, that's super fun.
And they have swallowed the books.
Right.
So-
yeah, they're like deep in. They are
Yes.
where you are with all the other stuff.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's great.
That's really interesting because I, you know what? I guess I always had this picture of you as somebody who kind of grew up probably
with
grew up that way or
Yeah.
grew up in that world, but it was something that came to you late in life. Interesting. Well, late in life as far as
Here in my twilight years. And no, but you're right, because
Right.
it was like I was literally, and who knew I would love it so much? And I've
Right.
been in a couple of LARPs. Andy today was talking about how he's slightly disappointed that I don't like LARPs as much as he does.
It's
intense.
It's a special flavor.
Right,
Like,
right. It's a different thing that I am actually not. Yeah, it isn't necessarily my thing. And
No.
you would think I would like it. Like the first LARP that I ever went to, he was running with his buddy Lee, who's an astrophysicist IT guy who works at JPL, Jet Propulsion
Of course.
Labs.
Yeah.
Yeah, all of his friends are these giant
these like real nerds. Like we call ourselves nerds, but they're actual nerds.
Oh my God,
they're,
like coding
They're
and-
nerds who are changing things in the world.
Right,
Yeah.
right. They could actually invent the things that they see on Star Trek.
They're the nerds that if we were to lose, we would realize just how not nerdy we actually are.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You're like, I don't know. And so, so him and Lee were running a Sandman LARP.
Okay.
And Sandman
like the
is
Neil Gaiman
the
books?
Neil Gaiman
Right,
books.
right,
So it was the third one they'd run, and there were, I think, 50 players in this game. They rented a theater,
Wow.
and it was based on The Wake. Remember The Wake?
Oh, now you're really challenging me.
So The Wake is when Dream is killed,
Okay.
and they have The Wake, and
Right.
everybody speaks to Dream's life,
Right,
to the
right,
Sandman's life. And so this LARP, the way they ran this LARP was people had to write one-act plays.
Jeez, Louis, this is intense.
Super intense.
And it's also very specific to this one specific story and
Right.
piece of.
We ran, he ran, and I was catering.
Yeah.
A Deadwood LARP
Okay,
that
that's super
ran.
specific too.
It was also 6 episodes of a Deadwood LARP, and it was.
and how many
amazing.
people showed up for these?
He has, and they're anywhere between 6 and 50 people will do these LARPs.
I'm surprised to find out 50 people watch Deadwood. That you just blew my mind right there.
Well, and some of them were just like, oh, cowboy LARP,
right.
right?
Yeah, of course.
So and
It's more vague.
right? And a LARP, of course, if people don't know,
Yeah.
it's a costume party with game mechanics.
Yeah. Okay. But speaking of which, you just alluded to the fact that you were very into the Civil War.
Right.
Was there ever the inkling to be like, hey, they do
Reenactment?
those reenactments?
Yeah. I had my stepmother. I badgered the hell out of her because they had them in Wisconsin, right?
Right.
And I was like, can we just one time go to a reenactment? And she was like, yes, we can. And she took me to it, and we lasted probably 45 minutes to an hour.
Yeah.
And
How long do they usually go? I've never.
they're all day. They're
It's like-
weekends.
Really?
Yeah.
It's like.
And so people dress up as both,
Right.
the two sides.
And
And
let's
then
just to be fair, I guess if you're going to going to one in Wisconsin is probably better than going
Well,
to
and
one
there's
some
a-
other places.
well, except for the fact that they do, they got to get the Confederates from somewhere.
Sure.
And so,
sure.
but I remember I was probably 14 or 15 years old.
What a weird thing to ask at 14 or 15 to your parents.
I was a nerd.
I really want to go to this Civil War reenactment.
Right. And so they have you've obviously have comic book love.
Yeah, I'm a nerd.
So they have sort of, it was like and I had never been to a Renaissance fair until I met Andy. And I had always wanted to go.
Sure.
And he doesn't particularly like Ren fairs. But they have a dealer room type of situation, obviously, of all of these things where
Okay.
they have to sell you, they can sell you crap.
Right, yeah.
And you're like, I want crap.
Yeah.
Let's go look at it.
Yeah.
And they were completely out of union hats. I wanted a frickin' union hat with the power of the sun. I wanted a union hat
Right.
because I'm 15, emotionally,
Right.
approximately 7. And so,
I mean, it's a fair desire, if I'm being
well,
totally
if you're
honest.
doing it, if
Yeah.
you're going to the one thing,
Right.
it's the thing you want,
Right.
right? And they were out of union hats. And so Nancy, my stepmother, was like, I can get you want the Confederate hat? And I was like,
Right.
are you out of your damn mind?
She's-
I would never.
Was- you said so. She was your stepmother.
Yes.
And I'm assuming lived with your father and her.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, all of us were raised by her. She married my dad when I was 8.
Gotcha. Okay.
So I was the youngest.
And were they did they feed into all of the nerd culture
No.
even when you were young reading it?
No.
No, I mean, well, they took you. She took you to the Civil War, so at
Exactly.
least that.
There was the
But-
thing about Nancy Kashian is that she was in many ways a great sport, and she affected my stand up. In like, people are always like, so your dad probably was the inspiration of your stand up.
I think that's the assumption.
And not so. I have my father's timing,
Right.
and I have his speech. The way he talks.
Right.
I got my sense of humor from my stepmother.
Oh,
She
interesting.
was enormously snarky,
Right.
super smart,
Right.
not particularly well educated. Like, she was a hairdresser. She had an
That
associate's
was my,
degree.
That was my mother.
Yeah, and but incredibly smart. Read all the time.
Wow.
Like, she was like spooky reading girl back in the day.
Right.
So she encouraged the reading.
Okay.
And
She was glad you were reading. She didn't care what it was. She
No.
wasn't going to like engage with you about, oh, what is that? And like she wasn't
Right.
like enthusiastic about it.
The one time I was reading it was a picture of it wasn't a romance novel, but it looked like a romance novel.
Okay.
On
Some
the
sort of
cover.
fantasy guy on the cover.
Right,
Yeah.
because it was a Native American with just a loincloth on.
Oh, sure.
So, and then some like
Was it a photograph or is it a painting?
it was a painting.
Okay.
And he was all, his nips were up.
Sure.
The whole thing was happening.
I feel like the painting is what saved it. Because if it's a photograph, then it's definitely.
well, she picked it up and she was like, "Saw this? What are we reading?"
some sort of Harlequin
And-
novel. Yeah.
Right. And I was reading Harlequin romances
Sure.
when I was in like 9th grade. A friend of mine, this girl I went to junior high with, turned me on because here's the story.
I could see the wheel going in your head. Like, I don't know if I'm sharing this or not.
There's a
You gotta
throwaway
give it to me.
line in Horcrux about it, or here, I forget what album it's on, but it's just a throwaway story. I never did anything with it.
Sure.
But I lost my library card when I was in 8th grade.
Okay.
Because when you hit $10 in fines, you couldn't
Yeah,
take stuff
right.
out of the library,
I
right?
remember.
So I started shoplifting books from Kmart, which it will change what you read. If you can
Absolutely.
only
If you can
get
only-
books,
yeah.
it was very hard to get a lot of Civil War
Right.
Civil War
In
Kmart.
Wisconsin.
Right. So I read all the Louis L'Amour novels.
Okay.
I read every Harlequin romance for probably 9 months
Right.
until one of the librarians pitched it and paid my fine.
I mean, the little paperback ones, those are probably really easy to lift.
180 pages.
Yeah, I mean, that's like.
all you got to do
that's
is
a
break
back
the
pocket.
binding and then back pocket.
Yeah,
it.
that's a back pocket
and then,
right there.
And dog ear one of the
Not that I've
things.
stolen a lot of books,
Exactly.
but
well, and the thing is if they would, and I always like ran the scenario, they're going to and I'm sure they knew I was stealing books, but
Right.
they were probably like, fucking steal books.
Right. Yeah.
Please
the
steal
employees at
books.
the Kmart do not give two shits.
Right. It's
whether
sort of
you're-
like going to see another movie.
Right.
Yeah,
Where
this
they're
is
like, whatever. Yeah.
$7 an hour.
Right.
And at the
Ex-
time,
exactly.
$5.
What am I going to chase
So-
you down and club you? What?
Yeah, exactly. So, but it was, so I ended up reading a bunch of, but
Right,
anyway.
right.
But the weird thing about the books, because my parents completely supported all this reading and
Sure.
stuff like that, and it was fine.
I mean,
kept us
it's
quiet.
It's a better thing for your kid to be doing than a lot of the other things.
Almost anything.
Like, yeah.
Keeps you off the pipe.
Right.
Keeps you off the
Right.
pole.
Were they
And-
concerned about you becoming like a recluse or like?
Yes.
Yeah?
Yes. I always, at one point, because I went to basketball camp in Eau Claire, Wisconsin.
Oh, there you go.
When I was 14, because everybody, we each got to go to one camp, our childhood.
Okay.
And my sister,
Oh, like a summer camp. Meaning.
a summer
Right,
camp,
right,
yeah.
right.
And my sister went to music camp in when she was in 8th grade or
Okay.
9th grade, and
Seems fun.
we all had to play an instrument, but I certainly did not want to go to music camp where I'd have to practice 5 hours a day.
Sure.
So I went to basketball camp because I liked basketball,
Okay.
and I was there was some. Like literally, when you're 12 and the whole world is on your shoulders and
Oh.
you're a lone wolf.
Oh yeah.
I used
Nobody knows the trouble I see. Yeah. Nobody knows. Yeah.
lone,
Yeah.
and I think I wrote. I had a diary
Oh,
that
we're
I
the
read.
same. We're the same person.
Exactly.
Yeah,
I'm
absolutely.
just a giant nerd,
Right, yeah.
right? And so anyway, but the weird thing is my sister got in trouble. She was reading weirdly enough, The Chosen in 8th or 9th grade.
Okay.
And one of her teachers was like, that isn't appropriate for your age.
What, remind me, I'm not familiar. What's
The
the Chosen?
It was a Robbie I forget the name of the actor.
Okay.
It was about. It was essentially about Israel. It was right after World War II.
Okay.
And it was when Israel became a nation. So it was historical fiction.
Okay.
About this Jewish family, after the Holocaust and the creation of Israel and in New York, and it had all of those elements, right?
Right.
And so,
It was heavy.
It was heavy,
Yeah.
and it was a book,
Right.
and it got turned into a movie with a guy named Robbie.
Yeah. So,
Anyway, so, but one of the teachers, and it was literally anti-Semitic, like because my sister was like, the woman was like, "This isn't appropriate. This isn't. They should never have created Israel." It went on this whole thing, and my sister was like, "I'm just reading a book over here. It looks very interesting." And so the teacher went to the principal. The principal called my dad, and my dad loved to have our back, especially when we were wrong. And and he and in this case she wasn't wrong, but my dad was talking to the principal, and so he yells, "Hey Darla, what are you reading?" And so she brings him the book, and he looks at it, he goes, "Is it porn?" And Darla goes, "No, it's about it's a historical fiction about the creation of Israel." And he goes, gets back on the phone, and he's just sort of had the phone away from his ear, and he goes, "Oh my God, please do not call again."
That's great.
It was awesome. My father is a big fan. I mean, my brother, we all, because we come from a sales background.
Okay.
We all sold things incorrectly.
Sure.
Shall we say?
Sure.
The profit was always made by the school.
Right.
But then there was a profit above that we marked everything up.
Right.
Every single one of us.
Right. Yeah. Keen business people.
Yeah. Whatever.
Sure.
And so one of my brothers was in the office, and the principal was asking him about it, and my brother said, "I'm not going to say anything." Like literally, like some sort of weird knowing to call a lawyer kind of guy. This is one of my brothers.
I know my rights.
I know my rights. Let me call my father. So he calls our dad, and my dad shows up with 2 lawyers, and they had the time of their lives, the 4 of them.
What did your father do?
He just said, "These are my lawyers. Is there some sort of problem with my son?"
I meant, what did he do for a living?
Oh, what's my dad do for a living?
Yeah.
He sells aluminum siding.
That's what he did.
Yeah, he's a siding.
He's done that his whole life.
His whole life, windows, doors, roofing, just home improvement.
I mean, it's probably a
Tin Man.
Tough business for sure. It's very competitive. You got to
super competitive.
Take no shit.
Mm-hmm.
And he shows up with 2 lawyers at a school when apparently his son calls.
Now, when I got caught, I was selling student council candy bars off. There were 2 rules: you couldn't sell them off campus.
Okay.
And they were 50 cents each. I was selling them in front of Kmart and Kohl's
for $1.50.
$1.
All right.
At every bar in between.
Right.
So I was 15, and I would sell them, and then I would walk, and I was making like $75 a week, and I was spending it entirely on Donkey Kong and Tempest.
Sure, yeah.
And it was 1981.
Okay.
And I would just go to the bowling alley and the
right.
It was amazing.
The arcade or whatever. Yeah,
it was amazing. And so I bragged about it to a fellow student who narked on me and will live in infamy. I don't blame her. I was kind of mean to her. So
that's fair.
In like 8th grade or 6th grade or something, I was super mean to her. So we were enemies.
Right. Yeah.
And then we saw each other at our reunion, like our millionth year reunion. And I was like, "Oh my God, Holly Abonic." And she's like, "How's it going?" I was like, I think we can bury the hatchet.
We're friends now.
Yeah,
we're friends now. Did say, all right, this is totally unrelated, but because you mentioned this, I'm fascinated with reunions.
Yeah.
Did you go to the school? Did you go to an event?
Nope.
Like, okay.
It wasn't like Grosse Point Blank.
Yeah. See, okay. I am
it's
obsessed.
Never like Grosse
I am
Point Blank.
absolutely obsessed with television and movie reunions because personally, that seems like the greatest thing to me.
If they did them like that, it would be amazing.
And my 10-year came and went a long time ago. My 20 is coming up.
Yep.
And apparently my 10-year reunion was at like a freaking Applebee's and 13 people showed or some shit like that. And I was just like, I'm not gonna go all the way back to fucking Long Island for that.
Yeah.
Because I want to go like to the school. I want to be in the gym or the auditorium,
right.
or the fucking the cafeteria.
Reminisce the prom I didn't go to. Something.
I want to see everybody didn't age well. I want to see who did age well. I want to rub it in my bully's face and also apologize to the kids I was mean to.
Right.
I want
the whole experience.
I want it, and I'm so angry that it doesn't exist.
It doesn't exist.
because I feel like one day I want to find that one person who's like, oh yeah, we went back to school and it was in the cafeteria and we had name tags. And,
and we went and saw our old lockers.
Yeah,
and it was great.
And there was a slideshow from everybody. It's like it doesn't exist. I'm
doesn't.
so angry that doesn't exist.
I know. There's injustice.
Yeah, absolutely injustice.
Yeah. So the last one I went to, it was the only one I've been to. I think it was the last friend I have from high school is this guy Stefan. Still lives in South Milwaukee, and so he said, I'll go if you go. And I said, well, I'll go if you go.
Sure, yeah.
And then so I make the plan. And he's like, I don't want to go. And I was like,
you jerk,
dude, you're totally going.
Yeah.
And he got a girlfriend out of it from our high school. So
wow.
I was like,
he owes you.
Yeah, you owe me big time. And so we went, and it was like our 30th, and it was just at some dive bar in South Milwaukee, which made more sense than I could tell you.
I mean, if it's anything like the parts of Wisconsin that I've been in, it makes perfect sense.
It is. The bar is called ambitiously the Gourmet House.
The Gourmet House.
Guess what? Nope.
No food?
No, plenty of food.
Oh, okay.
Not. It's fine.
Right.
Anyway,
neither gourmet nor house.
Right. It's not a house. It's a bar.
Right.
South Milwaukee, Wisconsin is a beautiful. It's
Sure.
very beautiful. It's a beautiful place to give up. If I were to ever just call it and decide to just live in a bar.
I know a lot of those cities.
Yeah,
I know a lot of those cities. There's a lot of that upstate New York.
Oh, yeah.
Upstate New York. There's some of the best places to fail are upstate
Buffalo?
New York. But that's where my mother lives.
That's
my mother lives in.
You want to call it?
She lives just outside Buffalo in Hamburg, which is, I'm pretty sure, one diner, 5 trees, and a bus, and she drives it.
Oh,
and
Jesus.
That's where that is.
Yep. And but we go, and it made me laugh so hard because I don't remember anybody in. I literally, the only thing I remember in my life is my act, and so it's not okay.
That's good.
And but the thing is, so we're in the. Oh, we were in So the first night was at the Gourmet House. The second night was at it was called Andar's or something. Whatever. It was a
really?
two-parter.
A 2-night event?
So the main one
was like Comic-Con passes to get into this thing.
Exactly. So we're at this other one, and one room has like steam table food, right?
Sure.
Because that's what it was. Right. And then the other room was the bar. And the game was on and whatever, and things were happening. And so this woman I went to high school with goes back into the bar to get a beer. Mm-hmm. And her husband's sitting at the bar. And I noticed that they're both wearing Green Bay Packer jerseys. And they both say Matthews on the back of them.
Okay.
And I say to her, your last name isn't Matthews. And the silence in the bar in South Milwaukee, Wisconsin.
Oh, my God.
Where everyone just looked at me, and I was like, don't get gasoline in a match.
I'm doing a bit.
I said to the bar as a group, I said, just tell me who he is. And then I'll know, and then it'll be better.
Yeah.
And there's a guy named Greg Matthews. He's a football player.
Sure.
Anyway,
yeah.
So there you go.
That's me as well. Like
it's not my thing.
I do enjoy hockey. I don't know what it is about
Andy
hockey.
enjoys soccer.
See, I think it's the speed. I think soccer would be similar if the games weren't so long and the field wasn't so big for me. I might enjoy it more.
Right.
I think I like the speed of hockey.
Right.
You can watch the entire game pretty quickly. There's not a lot of downtime. There's not and I think that's why I enjoy it. And I also think I love the physicality. And I think it's like the hardest thing it's hard to skate.
Yeah.
It's hard to skate and shoot something. It's hard to skate and shoot something while someone's trying to hit you.
Right.
It's all of these different things. I think that's why I appreciate it.
It feels like a complicated sport. Yeah.
But with that said, I come my family on Long Island, total football, and it's just Super Bowl parties every year, and I'm always just all I'm going to say was that when I was young, I called it a costume, not a uniform. That's all you need to know about as far as, the football costume. No, Jake.
That's funny.
That's a uniform.
I'll tell you.
I
tried when I was at Governor's, and I'm doing the Hamptons this next month.
Oh, okay.
I'm doing their PAC, the Performing Arts Center in
nice.
West Hampton. And last time I did the Hamptons, I opened for Judah Friedlander, and I tried to do my joke about how I stayed at a Hampton Inn, and nobody cared. They didn't even know what a Hampton Inn was.
They don't know what that is.
Right, and then so...
They're like, is that an inn near the Hamptons?
Exactly. Yeah. It's in the Hilton properties.
Right.
Anyway, free cup of waffle. Anyway, but the crazy thing is when I was at Governor's, and I just did Huntington, New York. I headlined Governor's, and then I opened for Maria in Huntington.
Huntington, North Shore, Long Island.
Yeah.
So that's where my sister lives. Yeah, Huntington Station and yeah.
Yeah, and so we did a small theater there. I opened for Maria Bamford.
Oh, delightful. is it like the little downtown area? Is there a theater there now where like you can walk around? It's like a little street.
Maybe.
It's a gaslighty kind of place. Like,
Sure.
Yeah. It's weird because I feel like when I first got my start in stand up, it was on Long Island, and then I immediately moved to Florida. So it's
there you
weird
go.
because I'm
What a weird
I'm
trajectory.
a Florida comic, which I
Yeah.
don't understand how that like.
I'm a Minneapolis comic.
It's weird because I'm like So it's just weird because I'm not familiar with the Long Island stand-up world.
Right, like where you would get to go up.
And it's
if
weird
you
because
went.
I should be. That's where I'm from. But anyway, so
I don't get to go up in Wisconsin barely, so it's fine.
So let's rewind real quick just because I'm still very curious. So dad's in siding.
Yep.
Stepmom is a beautician or a
Hairdresser,
hairdresser. My mom always got angry at me when I said that. She called her a hair cutter. She's like, I'm a beautician. I was like, sorry, Mom.
Nancy always liked hairdresser.
She did?
Yeah.
See, did she work someplace? Because my mom had like people come to the house.
Oh yeah, she worked someplace.
See,
Yeah.
we had like in the
She had a
basement.
hair salon. And
see,
then
that's-
when she stopped doing it for like 15, 20 years and got office jobs, just sort of admin kind of stuff.
Same as that. My mom did the same exact thing.
And then went back to it and worked at like a Fantastic Sam's or some fucking thing.
Oh, right. One of these
For like a
$8.
nickel.
Yeah. For a
And-
nickel. Oh,
yeah.
jeez. And that's right now. That's
Yeah.
like, not surprised. So you find yourself on this super nerd path, despite it seems like it doesn't come from your parents. Did it come from any of your older siblings? What did your older siblings do?
Well, not really. It's like literally my brother Phil, who was the one who turned me on to all the stuff when I was 19. It would have been him if he would have stayed, like if I would have grown up with him.
Right.
But he was already grown.
Right.
And like he gave me Harriet the Spy when I was 8.
Okay.
And so
That's a seed for sure.
It's a good seed.
Yeah.
And then I just read all the time.
Right.
So my sister read all the time too, but she had friends and a life.
Right. Sure. Unlike I'm understanding the implication there. Yeah. And that you're 7 years the closest between you and the first.
It's 2 years between each of us.
So
my
I get
oldest
it.
brother is
Okay.
10 years older than me.
Oh, so
My
then
second oldest brother is 8. My third oldest brother is 6. My fourth oldest brother is 4 years older than me. My sister's a year and a half, 2 years older.
I'm doing
than
math
me.
right now. Is that 6 or 7?
That's 6 kids.
6
Yeah.
kids. Wow.
Yeah.
All right. So you couldn't be a hermit even if you tried.
No.
Because there was always going to be
there's plenty of people to hang out with.
always going to be a kid. And the sister is the closest one.
Yeah.
Gotcha. What does she do?
She's a financial advisor
Gotcha.
at RBC Dane Rauscher.
Yeah, I have a theory that like if you have more than 2 siblings and you are the youngest, your only option is entertainment. Like it really is. Like
So my sister's a financial advisor. It goes from the oldest.
Sure.
My oldest brother's an evangelist with his own church.
didn't see that coming.
Yeah, he's an asshole. I
I'm
talk to him, but for
Right.
the most part, it's the meanest fucking Jesus you've ever met in your life. I want him to write a children's book
Not
called
a
The
mean
Meanest
Jesus.
Jesus.
Yeah.
Meanjus.
Yeah.
And then my second oldest brother is a print salesman. He sells printing.
Okay.
My third oldest brother's a commodities broker. My fourth oldest brother's an econ professor. And my sister's a financial advisor.
Yeah, you're not lying about just being a sales family for sure.
Yeah.
And all. Yeah.
Yeah, everybody's selling something.
Right.
My oldest
Yeah.
brother's selling Jesus. I'm selling jokes.
Yeah. My shtick is that my brother is hotshot police officer.
Oh, yeah?
I mean, like
Long Island police officer?
he's actually in Vegas, of all places. But he is like super cop. Like was winning. There's this award called I'm gonna butcher it now, and he's gonna be really angry. He doesn't listen. He doesn't care.
Right.
I want to say it's called like the Crime Busters Award, or the Crime Something Award.
Yeah.
And it's like awarded to like the top like officer in a
How long has he
state.
been a cop?
Since like 2001 so
Okay, so like good 15, 17 years.
Yeah, he's reaching the end. Hopefully, wrap that shit up. But I have that on one side. Inversely, on the other side, sister, big, giant, top, hotshot defense attorney in New York.
Oh,
All right?
wow.
Defense attorney and police officer.
Right.
He catches them, she helps them. And
Right.
it's just,
Yeah.
I had no choice. There was nothing that I was going to do. There was no like desk job.
Right.
There was no like selling a thing that was going to fix this for me.
Right.
Of
Do
like
they even talk?
the expectations. They're friendly.
Okay.
And they love each other. They are
Okay.
technically step siblings. They're
Okay.
both my halves.
Okay.
But they're steps. But so they quote grow up with each other. They met
Yeah.
when they were youngish. But still, they're close. But it's
Yep.
like we have to shut those conversations down.
Yeah.
When my brother starts chatting about the arrest, and
The
my sister starts
injustices.
going, and then my sister starts going, well, why did you do that? What gave you that info? Like, why did he tell that to you?
Why did you
Give
think
me his
that was
number.
something?
What's his name? I want to. Yeah. So I feel like you were destined for entertainment in some capacity.
Yeah, I think I remember I wanted to be like everything I wanted to be when I was a kid was my sister worked in the development, like she was a nonprofit.
Oh, interesting.
She raised money for nonprofits for many years, and then decided to go into the for-profit world and then be on nonprofit boards. She's like, why don't I make a boatload of money and donate it?
Right, I get it.
And she's
That's commendable.
she's like, yeah,
Hopefully,
she's
it's
like-
going to.
right. She's a socially responsible financial advisor.
Good.
And my brother Russ is, he's grand poobah of our church from when we were kids.
Okay.
And he is he's always been a lifelong Republican. And my brother Phil, who's been a lifelong Marxist.
Jeez, I didn't see that one coming.
Right. It goes, and it like Scott Terry, my oldest brother, the evangelist, is literally a mean person.
Right. Yeah.
And so it is very difficult.
He sounds like a cartoon character.
To fucking talk to him.
Sure.
And so I haven't in a couple of years.
Sure.
Because he's going to say something, and his wife is Mexican, his children are half Mexican, and he's
still probably
an asshole and a racist piece of shit in many ways. And I'm just
sorry.
like,
yeah.
You are killing me.
Right.
We can't talk until the Civil War is over. Is that okay?
Right. Yeah.
And then my second oldest brother is this big hippie skippy crystal clutcher dude, right?
Okay.
Who raised his kids.
Crystal clutcher.
Like,
oh man, I've never heard that. Thank you for that one.
that one's that's a
freebie.
That's a classic.
Yeah.
That's one of mine. And so because he, like, I used to do a joke about it might be on bread. It was about how he taught his kids how to play new age musical chairs. Everyone gets a chair. So it's a chestnut, you guys,
That's a really
right there
good one.
from the
That's a
vault.
good one. That's a free one for you guys.
That's a free one right there.
I'm going to tell you how to pay for it later.
Hit Spotify. Anyway, so they're all free. So, but but Phil and then my brother Scott,
right.
He's been hit and miss as far as like he's a bit of a button pusher.
Okay.
So he likes to pretend. He likes to be conservative if you're liberal. He likes to be liberal if
Oh,
you're
he's a
conservative.
contrarian a little bit.
Yeah.
Likes to argue with you.
Yeah. So, which makes him a jackass to kind of hang around with sometimes.
I'm a little bit guilty,
And-
if I'm being honest. That's me sometimes. I mean, I feel like I'm a big Shades of Grey guy, and I just don't like it when
50 Shades of Grey?
No,
guy?
maybe. I don't know. I haven't given it a chance yet.
All
To be
right.
perfectly fair, I haven't given it a shot yet. Maybe I'll love it. But I feel like whenever someone comes in real hot with something, so it's
Coming in hot.
if someone comes in real hot with something and they're just like, this is it, then I'm like, well, wait a minute, maybe. But if you approach me with like, oh, this is probably this way, then I'll agree with you. Then I'm like, you know what, you're probably right. But if you come in, and you're like,
I see
this
both
is the law.
of your siblings in you,
right
there.
Yeah, I told you, I'm screwed. I'm totally screwed either way. But
the thing about, I mean, like my father is very much a contrarian, which
Okay.
is where Scott gets it.
Right.
And then my brother Russ has always been just fiscally conservative, socially doesn't care.
Right.
And
As long as the money's here.
well,
that's all that
he
matters.
doesn't, and he tithes, like he's like an old school Christian kind of guy who's like
right.
10% gonna help people,
Yeah.
and he's super helper guy.
Okay.
Almost everybody in the family is,
Right.
and it's so funny because Phil, the crystal clutcher, and Russ, the lifelong Republican,
Right.
Phil said that, he said to Russ the other day, he goes, it's weird. You haven't changed your politics at all, but all of a sudden you're a liberal. And Russ goes, yeah, you don't have to call me one. And because I mean, the thing is
yeah.
about my dad and my brother Russ is they both voted for Hillary Clinton.
Sure.
And Russ was like, well, it's not like she's a liberal. And my dad hilariously goes, she's not hot, but she's overqualified.
Wow.
And
yeah,
because my dad's a ladies man.
Yeah, he's a real. I can tell. He's definitely pulling chairs out, opening doors.
He's more of an aging horn dog, is what he is. He's
right.
82. And
have you
he's
just is he at that age where you just go, yeah, that's the way this is now. There's no
he's
point
been
in having
milking that
conversation.
since he was 40.
Oh,
I
that's
can't.
not fair.
It isn't
That's
fair.
not fair at all.
And so I call him on every. I'm like, Dad, you're killing me.
Right,
is
right.
what I like to say to him.
Right.
And if he makes some and sometimes he's still button pushy and stuff.
Right.
Russ told me that he kicked him out of the house. He kicked him out of the car a couple of years ago, and I was like, when he was 80. And he said he just started button pushing me about the politics.
He just left on the side of the road?
Yeah, he was just like, get out. And I said, you kicked our 80-year-old father out of the car. And he goes, his car was like 2-3 blocks away. It was
all
fine.
right. He just gave him a little time to cool off, maybe.
He's just like, why don't you get out?
Like it was in the middle of a blizzard, but it's not.
Right. It wasn't 26 below. It was fine.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like you definitely have to have a little bit of each of these people in some capacity.
Right,
at least the more
I get,
direct ones.
Well, the thing is the joke I do about my dad is that we didn't see him a lot when we were kids, but he affected all of our lives.
Sure.
He was a lot like radiation.
Right.
We didn't see him, but he affected all of our lives.
Sure.
And
I feel with my mother, single mother. Dad took off when she was pregnant with me.
Wow.
And
so she's churning it out.
Yeah, and she always worked all the times. And here's the thing: is I give my mother all the credit in the world. She did the best she could. Doesn't mean she didn't ruin me. She did the best she could.
Right. The best you could doesn't mean you did it right.
No,
it
not
just
at all.
means, but you
gave it
give him
100%
Right.
of what your 100% was.
and you are an adult.
Yeah.
You live.
I made it. I'm here. I'm breathing.
Yep.
But with that said, it's incredible, especially now as I approach 40 by the years. I'm just finding myself like saying all the shit she said. It's like you said, it was like, it's radiation. Like I'm a big fan of sayings. I don't know why. I have a fucking saying for everything. My friends, the feature film that I wrote and directed, castmates will finish my sentences because they know the dumb little sayings that I'm going to throw at them. like, oh, better to need it and not have it than have it and not need it. Or I'm sorry, other way around. I screwed that up. But like little things that I say all the fucking time, and I realize
those aren't even classics. Those are very unique to yourself.
That's what I'm saying. But I'll repeat them over and over, and it's the same shit.
Sayings.
It's the same shit that my mom did, because my mom had all of these stupid sayings that no one ever heard. These weren't like
You know what Nancy Kashian saying? Wash, wipe, and put away. Live to eat another day.
I like that. I actually like that quite a bit. I'm going to use that for here. That's how I live. Yeah.
Don't help unless you're asked, and when you're asked, do it right.
Okay, that not too dissimilar to one my uncle gave me, which was there's no point in touching it twice.
Oh, there you go.
No points. It's like, hey, if I'm gonna pick this up, put it like. I think one time we were moving like pieces of a fence from a backyard to the front yard, and me and my cousins, we were kids, we were like, oh, let's do it like I'll bring it here, and then you bring it here. My uncle's like, what's the kids doing? You picked it up, put it where it's gonna go. Like, don't make an assembly line out of it.
Right.
Just no point in touching it twice. And he would say that over and over again.
Yeah.
But I'm that way, and
and it's osmosis.
You have to have some level of contrarian to be a comedian.
Oh, well, and I mean, the thing is I like, you can see it. There's perspective that you can see, obviously, from where you write the jokes from, but it's weird. Like I aspire not to be a contrarian, right?
Right.
Which some people are like, well, how do you write happy comedy? How do you write comedy from a happy place? And how do you write comedy from a place of non-contrariness?
Yeah, or confrontation in general.
When I don't enjoy either of those two things. And because I want to be happy, I want to not be confrontational, and I would like to still do stand-up comedy.
Right.
So all of those three things makes the job slightly
harder. It's weird because it feels like...
but more interesting.
For stand-up, at some point, you always have to be pulling something down from wherever it is. Like at least that's what it seems. And I'm sure that there's a way to do it, which clearly
it's interesting because you say pulling down instead of punch up. Because of the term that is being coined is mostly you should punch up.
Always punch up, which means like punching down. Exactly.
But pulling down is actually also punching up. I mean, because what you're doing is you're taking, you're saying, oh, the Bezos guy or whatever. Like if that's the guy you want to make fun of.
I love that was the first thing that came to your mind.
Right. Or who's the guy who wants to run for president? Who's the Starbucks guy. Starbucks guy. Like, you pull that guy down.
Right, exactly.
So that he's at a level with the rest of us and go, hey, Banana Head, I'm not going to, because he wants billionaires to be referred to as the wealthy.
Right.
Or someone who's been very successful.
I prefer to call them assholes. That's what I like calling them.
Or billionaires.
Right.
Dude, you have billions of dollars.
Plus, there's no way in hell you're going to be able to spell wealthy on the side of that cup. You're not getting that right. There's an H in there somewhere that people don't realize. It's very difficult.
Right.
Yeah, but I honestly, I definitely could see a little bit of that in you. But I appreciate that you're trying to keep positive.
Well,
that's necessary.
Right, and it's weird because I was really doing really good with that, where I was coming from a really good place, and then seriously, the government went to shit.
Yeah,
and who knew I was a fan of government?
Right.
Prior to this, I was not.
I honestly, yeah.
Which is the theme of my the new hour I'm working on. It has to be the theme of it,
right?
Because I don't know how to write anything else right now.
Sure, I've noticed at least via social media that you're very divided. You're like not divided internally, but you're like, hey, this is my personal page. Come here for comedy shit.
Yes.
Come here because I want to tell you everything that's wrong and everything
the
I'm upset about.
The world is on fire.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know if you noticed.
Yeah.
But this is on
the
fire,
drapes
and then this
falling.
is also on fire, and then
curtain rods
that
are
pillow
burning.
You're sitting on is fucking on fire.
Right.
And so my personal page is just a shit ton of political stuff. And
but it's
because when I'm online,
you're doing your part.
I'm either posting about shows, which I want to do just on my fan page on Facebook,
right.
or I'm reading the news going, what the fuck is happening?
Yeah.
And so I'm like, does everyone know this?
See,
and so I post that.
I'm in this weird space now where I feel like the election year broke me, where I used to just I would consume Twitter and just the news and I before this current presidential cycle. Yes. And I was just obsessed with it. And I was that guy who people would be like, oh, don't get into Twitter fights with idiots. And I'd be like, no, screw that. Because if one idiot out there sees it and goes, oh, you know what? That's a good point. Then it's worth the time.
Then I win.
Yeah. But I feel like it's got to the point where it broke me, and I have downloaded this Marvel video game on my phone.
Which one?
Contest of Champions.
I play Puzzle Quest.
Okay, Puzzle Quest. I see the
Marvel
ads.
Puzzle Quest.
Every now and then
I see the Contest of Champions.
Every now and then it's like, hey, download this and we'll give you some coin or whatever. And I'm like,
I'm already sucked into this other one.
Right, yeah.
That's
exactly.
what I say.
But can I say it's not healthy because I'm obsessed. I've become obsessed with it.
Right,
but,
you play that 6 hours a day.
But it's keeping me out of the pit.
Yeah.
And I've noticed that and my girlfriend Alexandra, who is well aware that it's a problem at this point, God bless her, she's been very great about it, but she's definitely said on multiple times, does this just allow you to think better? And I'm like, yes. When I'm playing it, it's just kind of mindless and I'm not thinking about...
It evens you out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm not thinking about all the other shit, and it's just sort of like, oh, good, I can do this, and then I could do podcasts, and I could do this stuff.
But when called upon, you will storm the Bastille.
Oh, absolutely.
There you go. That'll be fun for you.
Yes.
Okay.
When triggered, I fire.
Because previously, I have a degree accidentally in political science.
Oh, really?
From the University of Wisconsin,
from
Madison.
the aforementioned? Yeah.
Because the club went away and then I got to graduate. So, because I was just doing stand-up a lot less.
Right,
and so, but the insanity is that prior to this election, I was political, but not online.
Right.
I did not get into those fights.
Right. You try to keep it
since I stopped watching speeches around 92, 94.
Very interesting.
Bill Clinton.
Right.
I was like, oh, he's lying to me.
Right.
I'm going to read the speeches. So since then, I've read all presidential speeches.
That's fucking brilliant. I don't know how you can get through anything Trump does.
You can't.
Right. It's impossible to read.
Right. So and when I say I read them, I'm not. It's not like a contract. I'm not.
Of course.
I'm not examining them.
Yeah.
I'm skimming them. But I'll tell you what pops out when you read any of them. Even Barack Obama, if certainly HW, not HW, just W.
Yes. Yeah. W.
Right. So you can see the lies.
Right.
You can see
it's
the
easier.
gaps.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it's like, I mean, especially as somebody who's read so much, narrative science fiction, and hey, the subtext here is very
glaring,
simple. Yeah.
And the things he's not saying also very, very glaring.
Right. You can see what's omitted
and
way
so
easier.
If Hillary had been allowed to become president, I would have also read hers because I would not have.
That's really interesting.
Because I can't listen to them lie to me.
Sure.
I can read them lie to me.
Right.
And with fucking knob job Trump, I can't read anything. It's so hard to.
I don't know how you could physically when I say I don't know how you read, I don't mean on an emotional level. I mean
his State of the Union. The day we're doing this, the State of the Union is tonight.
Uninterested.
I will not be watching it, obviously, and but so this because of like every rock in the country has turned over and every fucking worm that ever existed has got a voice.
Right.
And they're being interviewed and they're being allowed
Right.
and encouraged.
Sure.
And so it's so hard for me not to address these things.
Right.
And that's just the political stuff.
Right.
And then the rest of it is like, I've always done stand-up comedy. So I always knew that there was sexism. It's not like I haven't, but but you go through your life existing and fighting the fight that you're living through, right? You're not super hyper aware that there's sexism until there's like sort of a helicopter view.
Right.
And someone going,
right.
oh, that just happened to,
right.
Did you see what happened to you? And, or you'll see it on other people and I'll see it. And with all these new young women comics and the stuff that they're piping up about, I'm like, you don't like that?
That's not.
That's
yeah,
not,
right.
Oh, you're right. That's probably shitty.
Right. I mean, essentially you're broken. Like not to make it, not to sound fucked up, but you know what I mean? Like you're like you have been broken to the point where you just go, this is it.
My defense mechanisms have already in place.
Right.
I can plow through the dirtbags of the world and just keep doing stand-up comedy.
Right.
Because, like I know to avoid the fucking elbow squeezer of a club owner.
Right.
Who there's a lot of petting and squeezing and you're just like, and around,
right,
dodge away.
Right.
So, but the women, the 30 to 38 year, like the 25 to 38 year old women comics who are really coming up right now are like, don't touch me.
Right.
Right. And I'm like, oh, that's an idea.
I can say that? Yeah, sure.
So anyway, I don't know how to not do jokes about those two things.
Right.
Because they're so glaring in our society right now. And I want to tell, and I have some jokes about dogs, and I have happy jokes about my husband.
But I feel like it's, and a lot of people are like, oh, I hate when, I'm so upset that you got political, or I'm so upset. Like you see this a lot online, and comics who maybe were a little bit more
political than they've ever been.
Yeah, and now that's shifting, and people are like, oh God, I wish you would just leave. I miss you when you were talking about fucking food, or whatever dumb shit. And it's like, yeah, but you know what? But this is what I'm this is what I'm experiencing. This is the life I'm living right now.
And you write jokes
food,
about what you're.
I used to give two shits about food.
Right, I had time.
Because I was
to write a hot pocket joke.
I was allowed to.
Right?
Jim Gaffigan, fucking Gaffigan. Yeah.
I don't know how he still writes about food and stuff like that, but even Brian Regan, is doing political stuff,
which is when I saw his recent special, the fact that he even mentioned anything about the election, about people running for president, I was like, whoa, because this is the guy who's like, this is the smartest comedian in the world doing comedy for everybody versus for incredibly only smart super nerd. Like, and this dude can make anything the funniest thing you've ever heard. Right. And even he's like, well, I have to do it because this is the world we live in.
Right. I don't know how to not do it. Yeah. Which is a sign of how deep into the soil it is. Right.
Right.
And so
you can't stand on stage at a comedy club and the comedy club is literally on fire and say, so I got a new dog. Anybody have a dog? Like you can't talk about anything that's not the fire that you're standing in.
You have to address the fire.
Right.
Yeah. And it's my father very hilariously said to me, he's like, so you getting how are people taking the political stuff? You getting any guff? And I said Dad, have you looked at me recently? Right. People look at me and they're like, what's she gonna do? Vote? I'm terrified.
Right.
I mean, I'm relatively harmless seeming, right?
Sure.
So people, when I do get guff, sometimes I get like, there'll be a dude in the audience. I'll talk about sexism, right? I'll talk about dirtbags and sexism to some extent. And there'll be a dude about 6 months ago in the audiences. I was at a point in the joke where I was not reaching past sort of the male ego part of it to the dude.
Understood.
So the dudes would tighten up.
Right.
And there'd be a guy going, and finally I just, at one show I had to go look at this guy and go, hey man, did you slap an ass? That's not what I'm talking about. Right. Don't do it again. But I'm talking about a bigger issue. Right.
Where it's like, everybody's looking at me. Like that's the fear. The fear,
Right. I was like, I know you have some guilt and I cannot process that for you.
Sure.
In an ideal world, you'll stop doing whatever you are guilty about. Right now.
Yeah. The second you're upset about somebody talking about it, it's too late. You've already messed up.
Right. You might do some navel gazing and say to yourself, oh, well, maybe I'll stop doing that.
Right.
It's and I was on the radio in Minneapolis a month and a half ago.
Okay.
Because I was doing shows in Minneapolis.
prep in the
So
morning.
this guy, morning radio. So this guy squeezes by me, the radio dude, puts his hands on my shoulders, and because it's tight, so he just puts his hands on, and I've known him for 20 years, right? But he puts his hands on my shoulder and squeezes them, and then sits down. And he was like, "Oh, I'm not supposed to do that anymore." And I said, "You weren't supposed to do that.
No.
Like 20 years ago, you weren't supposed to do that
Anymore. That's the key word there.
And I was like, Tom, you weren't supposed to do it 20 years ago, but, I know you don't mean anything by it, so I'm
Right.
just going to, and it wasn't
Baby
the
steps
worst.
for him, at least.
Yeah.
At least he realized it after the fact, but still.
right. And a little bit of bitches, man.
Right.
They've ruined it.
Right. Oh, jeez. Well, Jackie, I look forward to hearing you talk about the fire a little bit in
Sure.
the upcoming.
The new hour is at least 20 minutes about the fire. I'm sorry to tell you, but 25 minutes about happy things.
Sure. And do you have a specific plan? Like you're looking to get it? Is there a timeline, or you're just working on it?
I'm just working on
Just
it.
working on
It's like my last album came out. It'll be 2 years in March. I
Gotcha.
usually do a 3-year.
Okay.
Every 3 years, I put out a new album. Sometimes it's 5. Depends how the writing goes.
Yeah.
And
Also
and I'm-
depends on if there's a fire or not.
Right,
Sure.
and how much new stuff is
Right,
happening. So,
right.
like the Hero album that came out almost 2 years ago now. It came out 6 weeks after I recorded it.
Right. And that's
6 weeks after the
the
election.
hero of the story.
Yeah, I'm not the hero of the story.
Right.
And that one. So the first 10 minutes are this crazy ass rant of brand new jokes, and they're pretty great, but they're super dark.
Right.
But so that's 10 minutes. The following 40 are perfectly fine.
Right.
Those are the 2 years of jokes that I wrote.
And all of your stuff is. You said it's available on Spotify earlier. You
Yeah,
mentioned?
it's Pandora, Spotify, Amazon Prime.
Awesome.
And then you can buy the albums on iTunes
Nice.
and Amazon if you want. And
Nice.
then hard copies at JackieKashian.com if you
Nice.
want.
And you can get tour dates at JackieKashian.com as well. Tell me really quick about the Jackie and Laurie show.
And the Dork Forest. Well,
the
so the
Dork
Dork
Forest.
Forest we mentioned, that's been
Right,
going, this is
yeah.
the 13th year. I interview people about what they love.
Yeah.
You know?
You had on a fellow Dragon Wagon Radio host, Cheryl Jones from Movies Made Me.
Oh my God, maritime history.
Yes.
She talked about freaking maritime.
She was on the show as well. And
it was out. That's one of the best episodes of the year, quite honestly.
and the fact that it all was inspired by watching Pirates of the Caribbean. And that shit blows my mind.
And then she went and got a master's.
I know. And
That's
went overseas and was like, yeah,
insanity.
I absolutely love Cheryl. She's incredible. And yeah, that her love of that is
Outstanding.
is
So that was a great
outstanding.
episode. There's a
Yeah.
great episode about bees. I just recorded 3 episodes yesterday.
Right.
2 of them about Star Trek.
Oh.
Different Star Treks. Didn't tell the other people that the other person was doing anything
Ooh.
because people get self-conscious.
Sure.
You shouldn't. Everybody's
Sure.
dorkdom, even if it's about
Sure.
the same thing, is an entirely different hour.
Ever do an episode on pro wrestling?
At least 4.
Oh, I was
And you can be on.
I was hoping to
talking
get in
about
there
no.
because yeah, that's
Do it. Open Mike Eagle, Ron Funches.
Oh, okay.
Any number of people have
Sure.
been on talking about pro wrestling.
Yeah.
Mike Schmidt,
I feel like
Andy Paynes.
that's sort of the world. I feel like if there's anything that's like, oh, that part of nerddom that I'm just surprised more people haven't embraced from nerddom.
Sean White did Star Trek and then went into the last 20 minutes. He went into this amazing Punisher Thanos
Oh wow.
Galactus thing that was amazing. So
I'll have to
like
check that one
did
out.
an episode about Ween, the band Ween.
Wow, that's I feel like that's like once you've reached Ween,
Right, karate.
now you're
It
trying.
could be anything. And
Ju-
so
like
that's sort of
karate, just the thing.
a specific kind of karate this woman was into.
Oh man,
Anyway,
this is beautiful.
It's the
Yeah,
Dork
that's
Force
great.
is super fun. And then Jackie
and Laurie.
Laurie, literally Laurie Kilmartin and I,
Yeah,
who
she's
writes on
incredible.
Conan,
I love her.
is an amazing comic. We bitch about and celebrate stand-up comedy for 1 hour exactly. And
that's
that is at the
fantastic.
Jackie and Laurie show on
Well,
iTunes.
I do urge everybody to check out all of those other shows, as well as make sure you go to JackieKashian.com for tour dates, because you've got to see her. She's an absolute delight, and
Thank
you will
you.
love it. If you're enjoying this show, please follow at Elaborate Pod on all social media. And if you're enjoying it and you want to show your support, 2 different ways you can do that. The first is the best way, which is to check out dragonwagonshop.com. You can get some awesome merchandise, some Elaborate t-shirts, mugs, all the good stuff at dragonwagonshop.com. Great way to support the show. And then, hey, if you're like, I don't care about you that much to buy anything or wear something, but I will do a free thing of writing a review on Apple Podcasts, that's great too. And just keep on listening. I say to everybody always, don't be an influencer, be an artist, create art, not content. And that is my message to you. Jackie, thank you so much for coming. It was an absolute blast to get to know you. Absolutely love you.
Jake, why don't you just tell him your Venmo?
It's Jake _ No, I don't know. All right, thanks again. Hey, Dragon Wagoneers. I am sitting down right now with one Steven Sable. Hi, Steve.
Hey, Jake.
You are a host of a brand new podcast on this very podcast network called Don't Quill the Messenger.
I am indeed. That's correct.
What is Don't Quill the Messenger about?
Well, Don't Quill the Messenger is a podcast series about the Shakespeare authorship question. What is the Shakespeare authorship
That's
question?
my line.
Oh, let me tell you what the Shakespeare authorship question is. The Shakespeare authorship question surrounds the mystery of who was the real writer behind the pen name William Shakespeare. A lot of people don't realize that the pen name William Shakespeare was a pen name, but there are people like me who believe it was. And we look into the different controversies and theories that surround that issue and try to get to the truth by asking questions.
That is absolutely fascinating. How do people find it?
They find it on Dragon Wagon Radio, of course, or they can go to don'tquillthemessengerpodcast.com or wherever podcasts are found.
Dragon Wagon.